Previously on Margot the Red Granny.
Dun dun.
First contact has occurred with a race called the Legion, not the Legumes, although you'll be calling them that, I'm quite sure, who have this unique approach to art, where they are able to marry one style of art with another. So they design dresses which feel like ballet dancing, and food which grips you like a thriller, and all this kind of constant cross-cutting of not even genre, but medium. And they're fascinated by art and what humans can do with it, because much as we have never encountered art like they've seen it, like they produce it, they've never encountered art like we produce it. So they set up a colony on the moon, which becomes a massive creative hub. And they run patronage schemes whereby you can go to them and create art for them, and it will be, you become rich and famous, basically. And the main character is a comic artist, so we know for a start he's broke. And then the first thing that happens is that his agent drops him because she's moving to the moon to be closer to her clients than matter. Whereas in reality what happens is that they move to Shoreditch. Moving on.
There's a little bit autobiographical in there, is there not?
Just a wee bit. And Margot has now been accepted as the patron of a house of the Legion. Accepted-ish.
He's made it up there. He's met the Red Granny.
He's met this delightful old lady with this terribly home counties accent, who it turns out is in fact the most terrifying gladiator on earth, because the Legion really like blood sports. Because they firmly believe that art comes from emotion and honesty, and there is nothing they feel more emotionally honest than brutal, savage violence. So they basically run these gladiatorial games on the moon, and the Red Granny is called that for a reason, shall we say. And it also turns out she's sponsored by the same family, which I'm guessing in about 50 pages, Marco's going to realise is a bad thing.
So shall we pick up?
Let's pick up.
Oh, hang on. Content warnings real quick for this.
Yes, content warnings. Swearing, blood sports, depiction of injuries and death, posh accents.
And one scene this week contains some psychological and emotional trauma. We'll give you a heads up before it starts.
I may be relying on you for that, if that's cool.
Fine, I'm good. I'm good to go.
Alrighty, here we go. Marco, so good to see you, his agent cried as she opened her chat program. She looked coiffed and ready to travel. I'm heading to the moon earlier than I thought. I forgot travel slowed down a lot during your night. I'm catching the last shuttle for a week in 15 minutes. What's up, you settled? Marco shrugged. It'll take some getting used to. Look, I wanted to ask you, they've already sort of assumed I'm working for them. I have no idea what's behind this patronage, what I'm doing for them, what they're paying, or anything. Really? Catherine laughed. No one has ever turned down a Legion patronage before, Marco. You're set for life. Does it matter what you'll be doing for them? Comics, graphic novels, maybe? Yeah, that sounds great, but I get the sense that Blue isn't the house that usually supports the arts, Marco said. They support the blood sports, like the most dangerous game. I mean, they're the patron house of the Red Granny. Catherine's eyes went wide. Really? I love her. Marco waved his hands in front of his tablet to get her attention. That's not the point. What if they expect me to participate? What if some lines get crossed and suddenly I'm a gladiator? Can you get me out of it? Catherine sighed. Marco, they told me they wanted a writer and illustrator, someone who could do two kinds of art at once. They named you as the someone they wanted. They said your work is powerful and just what they're looking for. They said they're paying 25% over the standard patron, and I would get mailed the full terms of the agreement today. I will call you when I get in, and we can meet tomorrow to discuss it. And now a small pause for the shrieking lawyer.
The lawyer's about to have a heart attack. Let's move on. Swiftly, please.
Is it that he's on site and has started
work? Not even his agent has seen the contract yet, and he's already on site.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, Marco said doubtfully, but I don't even know what the standard patron contract is. Listen, we'll talk about it tomorrow. I have to go catch my shuttle. Cheer up, Marco. You look like you've been given a bowl of ice cream, but you're whining that it's butter pecan instead of chocolate. Her face disappeared as she severed the connection, and Marco stared at his tablet. But what if I'm allergic to nuts? He muttered. He sighed and placed the tablet on his human-sized desk. The room was clearly built for their pet humans. It resembled a high-end hotel room with an oak desk, queen-sized bed with silk bedspread, and down comforter for the long moon night. A full bathroom, a luxury in Mollywood, where water was much more expensive than it was on Earth. Television and gaming system, and treadmill and weight rack, very important for the low gravity, he understood. He looked out the window. He didn't know if he was gratified or annoyed about the fact that his window showed the clear dome and the moon wastes beyond. The sun was on the other side of the dome, and since it was setting to end a 348-hour moon day, only the light from the dome illuminated the grey landscape. Just his luck to get there at the start of the 2-week-long moon night. Talk about seasonal depression. He could just see, at the edge of his vision, a red fence about 20 feet high. That must be where the most dangerous game was played. He checked his watch, realised he hadn't set it to lunar time, and in fact, he needed a new watch. Mollywood ran on GMT as the humans preferred a 24-hour day, but everyone needed a lunar watch if only to know when the sun would return. The large bathroom may have been a luxury, but the shower was carefully timed, something Marco didn't realise. The hot water ran out when his hair was soapy, and he ended up having to rinse it in cold water from the sink, swearing and sputtering. He was only half-dressed when a knock came at the door. He figured it was human, as the Legion had no knuckles. He opened the door in his jeans, still drying his hair, trying to rub some circulation back into his scalp. It was Heather. She no longer had the innocent lady on the plane act going on. She'd washed her face of the makeup and now was dressed in the outfit Marco had seen her wearing in the promotional picture. She wore a silver shirt that had been Legion-made, silk interwoven with metal, under which she wore a Kevlar vest. The silk had tubing running through it, attached to a small battery cell at her lower back, which Marco guessed was a heat source. Some entrants in the most dangerous game wore Earth-made spacesuits. They didn't last long. Her pants were made of the same material, but shiny red. Down her right leg were the circular Legion characters that Marco had seen on the doors and on some of the stationery on the desk that he assumed meant House Blue was her patron. I had a moment before I had to leave for the match. I thought I'd see how you were settling in, she said. She had a different air about her now, a quiet, no-nonsense manner. She left a friendly, scatterbrained granny behind her on the shuttle. Now she was all business. Oh, hi, sure, come in, Marco said. I was just getting dressed. He walked over to his duffel bag. So, what does one wear to the games when one is a guest of a house? Heather smiled thinly and went to the closet. Oh, I suppose you didn't look in here? Marco peeked in to see clothing hanging. Suits, jeans, shirts, coats. Each one a different colour, but a shift in angle brought out shimmery blue silk woven into each piece of clothing, branding it House Blue. He pulled out a simple white button-down shirt. As his hands ran over the fabric, he smelled something like an apple orchard in fall. Not fake candlelight smells, but a shocking sense he was actually among the ripening trees. Is that all yours? Your House Blue now, Marco. When you go to the games, you wear this, not the clothes you brought. The mention of the games brought Marco back to reality. He slipped the shirt over his undershirt and buttoned it, not looking at Heather. So, do you get nervous before the games? I mean... Heather laughed, her two straight teeth shining. Oh, of course I do, dear. People out there want to kill me, but you do this enough, you get used to it. You develop a way of doing things. She went to his desk chair and watched him get dressed. I don't mean to say that it's not difficult. I'm a target now, more than ever before, but it keeps you on your toes, rather. Marco took his new slacks into the bathroom with him for privacy. Couldn't you have taken up, I don't know, knitting? He called out the door. I could have, yes, but it doesn't pay as well as the games do, darling. And it's certainly not as exciting. Point taken, the jeans, of course, fit him perfectly, and the shirt hung just right to hide most of the gut he developed as an inactive writer. How do they know? He exited the bathroom, rubbing his hand over his dark crew cut to coax the rest of the water out of it. Very nice, Heather said when he came out. If I were 30 years younger, I'd be after you. As it is, I need to save my strength for the arena. Marco laughed, his voice sounding just a tad hysterical. He whirled nervously when his bedroom door opened with no announcing knock, and Six, the subservient Li Jun, stood there. It's time, he said, and beckoned to them. They left Heather at the contestants' entrance, where fans had thronged to get a glance at her. Some screamed her name and cheered. Others jeered and shouted insults about her age, her race, and one person, Marco thought, yelled something about the size of her feet. He shook his head. Some people. It struck him how clearly the Li Jun ruled Mollywood. Earth reports described how they were there with the humans' permission and how they provided much of the financing and creative tools for the base, but they didn't indicate how clearly the Li Jun were the upper ruling class here. Most of the humans had donned spacesuits with radio hooked up to game announcements and had gone outside to fill the stands around the open battlefield, much like a coliseum. All Li Jun and some humans were in indoor skyboxes that stuck out from the dome, reminding Marco of the little plastic bird feeders his mother used to stick on the windows. It was colder than the interior of the dome, but obviously much warmer than the atmosphereless night outside. Still, Marco had been glad Six had suggested he bring the large, heavy jacket, the outside made of an indeterminable leather and the inside lined with a soft red fur. He dug his hands in his pockets and did not envy the combatants. He enjoyed the brief sound of sweat-infused late-night New Orleans jazz that whispered through his head as he brought the coat tighter around him. It was the beginning of the most dangerous game season, the first episode of the first round. Television cameras were everywhere. The moon landscape had been changed to make for a more interesting battle. The stands surrounding the battlefield encompassed a square mile or so. Several craters looked bottomless, while hills and even caves had been formed from the moon rocks to give the competitors places to hide. Because of the terrain changes, Marco couldn't see the far end of the field, but several screens lined the lower half of the skybox, so he could watch live or on the monitors. 13 was there when he arrived, a sinewy body reclining in a large chair, along with several members of her household. The imposing figure of 7 drifted by the refreshment table. 6 led him to 13's side, and she gestured to a chair beside her. It pleases me to see you, Marco. Please take something from the refreshments table and join me. Marco nodded and went over to where 7 was picking through a bowl of fried food. So, what do we have here? Marco asked. Pakaran, 7 said, pointing to the bowl with a free tentacle. Fried meat of various sea creatures from our home. 13 has it imported for the game. Over there, you will find snacks from your world. Marco had no idea if he would be able to eat the alien food, or even if he was expected to, so he played it safe and loaded a bowl with tortilla chips. There was no alcohol in the skybox, and even though Marco would have liked one drink to dull his anxiety, he figured with the recent hangover he might want to stay sober. He took a bottle of soda and joined 13, who watched the announcer on the monitor. Her face drooped in a look that Marco was beginning to note indicated concern, or at least academic interest. The Alcoholics Guild has entered someone this season, she said. Marco opened his soda. Is that bad? I suppose the guild is more active here than on your planet. Marco nodded. Well, yeah, the Alcoholics Guild back home is outlawed. There are some underground sects, but no one whose official guild here on Ride Base is allowed to return to Earth. 13 inclined her thin head. The Alcoholics Guild celebrates and encourages the irrational and sometimes violent behavior that alcohol can give, but they have never entered the games. Do you think their entrant will be a threat to Heather? He asked, looking at the monitor. Every entrant is a threat, 13 said. Why would we watch otherwise? Oh, of course, Marco said, flushing in the chilly, dry air. The announcer on the monitor began introducing the contestants. And we have a first for the games, a representative of the Alcoholics Guild. Please light up the night with a warm round of applause for 6 foot tall, 300 earth pounds, make direct amends, Peterson.
Mur and Hardy have just arrived. Excellent.
Hey, Mur.
We're reading your blood sports.
Peterson, who had changed his name to the AA step he'd been on when he had dropped out, was a big white man with a 9 tattooed on the left side of his neck. He was 35 and had been drinking since he was 12. According to the bullet points below his name on the monitor, to prepare for this battle, he had downed a bottle of gin daily, keeping the hangover at bay to keep himself at top performance. When the announcer asked how he felt, the big man slurred, "If I don't die tonight, I'll wish I had tomorrow." "I'll snap Heather in half," Marco said. "I keep forgetting you haven't seen the games before," 13 said, still watching the screen. "Remember, make direct amends Peterson now weighs 50 pounds instead of 300. Heather does not have the handicaps of her age, including the fear of falling and injuring herself. And then, I suppose you did not realize, she is a peasant survivor of the Chinese invasion of Spain several of your years ago." Marco had no idea. Heather had a Southern American accent, not Spanish. His own grandparents had fled the invasion of Spain and had taken refuge in Canada. He'd heard stories of the brutality. She managed to keep her parents and herself alive when she was 10, 13 said. Marco swallowed nervously. Significant tea. The other 3 contestants were introduced. Yuri, a thin Russian who was on Luna for the first time. Akoth, a woman with sharp black eyes who had once been a marathon runner from Kenya, and another first for the games. Lucas, a lanky, 7-foot-tall, Luna-born 23-year-old who stood with confidence, having experienced lunar gravity his whole life.
I'm sorry, what was his name?
Lucas.
Okay, then.
And then there was the Red Granny. They gave her no bio, but when her face showed up on the monitors, the crowd outside flashed pen lights on and off to indicate their wild support of the little old lady. The announcer, a balding white British man with a retro-plaid lunar atmosphere suit, waved his arms and said, "Let's play the most dangerous game!" The contestants were each whisked away by a legion. House Orange, 7 had said with what sounded like a haughty sniff, to enter the battlefield at an undisclosed spot. "How does it work exactly? Do they just fight to the death and then it's over?" Marco asked, as the plaid suit lumbered onto the lunar surface, kicking up dust and waving to the crowd. "No, that would not be interesting," 7 said. "Each contestant will be handicapped in some way. They bring their own weapons, though, so they know what they will fight with." One of the monitors was turned to Las Vegas, where the odds were displayed. Heather was 2-1. The woman from Kenya was the long shot, at 80-1. "Why so unlikely?" Marco asked. "She has no patron," 7 said. "Legion's supported contestants have the best atmospheric gear and the best... Oh, hold on. Legion's supported contestants have the best atmospheric gear and the best weapons. Earth humans bring Earth weapons and bulky Earth spacesuits, and die. Almost immediately. Heather has a suit designed by the best Legion artists, blending tailoring and music that only she can hear, to bolster her." Marco turned from the Legion and looked at the battlefield, excitement and anxiety pooling in his stomach. He took a sip from the soda, nearly gagging at the metallic taste. "I thought only ex-cons got involved with the games," he said, really not liking the silence in the skybox. "As it's gained popularity, more and more humans are willing to express themselves in the ultimate way," 7 said, coming up behind him. "They sign away all legal rights, renounce Earth citizenship, and either die or become celebrities here." 13 pointed with a tentacle. "It begins." A suited figure stepped from underneath the stand on the west side of the stadium and looked around. It was Make Direct Amends Peterson, swaying on his feet and trying to get his bearings. He was the only one Marco could see, but the monitors showed Yuri emerging behind a hill, and Akoth climbing clumsily from a crater. Seven had been right. Akoth wore a bulky Earth suit, not the leaner Lunar-made models. "I don't see how she's handicapped," Marco said. The woman looked down and fingered her suit as Seven responded. "Her suit is ripped. Her time limited. It is to her benefit to finish the battle quickly." The woman's face was hidden by the gold visor as she walked in long, graceful steps out onto the field, flexing her hands. "Ah, we were mistaken. Her weapon is Legion-made," 13 said, looking at the close-up shot of the woman's hands, covered by a pair of thin gloves from which 5 small blades grew. "Difficult to kill someone with that, but it's easy to rip a hole in the suit. Killing by destroying someone's suit is legal, but it is not considered impressive." Still, her odds had gone up to 60-1 with this revelation. Yuri had spotted Akoth and started lumbering towards her. Akoth did not notice him behind her. He climbed to the top of a crest, about 12 feet above, and waited. Was his handicap? Marco watched as Yuri loomed, waiting for his chance. Seven pointed to a monitor. "The heater in his suit is gone. He also has a very little bit of time before he freezes to death." "How many people die in this game before someone kills them?" Marco asked. "About half," 13 replied. Yuri drew a wicked-looking knife from his belt and crouched, preparing to leap on Akoth. But before he could spring, he was hit from behind by Make Direct Amends, who had managed to approach them both without detection. The crowd went wild, lighting up the battlefield with their penlights in applause, which caused Akoth to turn around to see Yuri and Make Direct Amends tumble off the hill, landing in front of her in a slow-motion cloud of dust. Make Direct Amends had a garrote around Yuri's throat, a weapon that benefited from his incredible strength. The tough fabric of Yuri's environment suit protected him, but Make Direct Amends' alcohol-fueled brute force choked the life from the young Russian, and he sank into the dust. His struggles gone. Make Direct Amends had been so intent on killing Yuri that he didn't notice the Kenyan woman looping behind him and swiping at his back, as she did just as he sat up from crouching over his kill. The claws struck true and took a hunk of the big man's thin silver suit, severing his airlines as well. He was as good as dead. Everyone knew, and Akoth could have just left him to expire, but she kept going. As Make Direct Amends clawed at his back, she swept down with her other hand and gouged a hunk of flesh from it. The blood sprayed slowly in the vacuum, forming perfect red globes before falling gently to the dust. The lights flashed around Akoth wildly as the crowd cheered her sadism. The camera focused in on Make Direct Amends' helmet, his face contorted in silent agony, but he collapsed into unconsciousness in about 10 seconds. The Kenyan looked up from the two bodies, watching the lights flash around her. The new crowd favourite waved at them and looked around their field for her last 2 victims. "Oh God," Marco said. "Heather needs to watch out for her. Where is she?" 13 peered over the battlefield, where she could see only the one alive competitor. "She and Lucas are both missing. I would guess they are hidden inside a crater." One of the monitors flipped to a greenish night vision as a camera embedded in the crater showed the small, bubble-headed form of Heather. Her fingers splayed out wide as she felt the sides of the crater. Behind her, strapped to her back, was a long staff with a blade at the end. A scythe. She'd put it away in favour of a smaller knife she held defensively in her hand, slowly moving it around as she felt the wall. "What is she doing?" Marco asked. "Why doesn't she fight?" 13 exhaled, her feathery nostrils flaring and leaning forward intent. "They have blinded her. She's wearing a black helmet. No sight, no hearing. Smell and taste do nothing for her. She has touch, and that's all. One sense. Oh God. Have they ever done this before? They have given contestants half-blind helms before, but never full. Bile rose in Marco's throat. What's she going to do? She can't fight like that. 13 sat back. No, she can't. This should be interesting. Interesting. Don't you care about her? She knows what she's getting into. And stopping a fight to the death because our competitor might die is rather counterintuitive and unfair, wouldn't you say? Marco gritted his teeth, disliking this haughty alien more and more. What about the other guy, the moonborn guy? There he is, 13 said and pointed to a monitor. I don't get it, Marco said. Where? The camera had focused in on some rubble, and Marco had to squint before he saw the glint of a helmet. The man had used the low light, the shadows, and his own clothing to camouflage himself against an outcropping of rock. So he's just waiting there like a spider, Marco asked. What if Akoth never wanders past him? Then we see what happens when the impatient spider gets hungry, 13 said. But watch out, Red Granny. Marco focused again on the older woman who was feeling around her surroundings. She tentatively edged her toe along the ground. Discovering the ledge she stood on went halfway around the crater she was in. She picked up a rock and tossed it over the side, placing a hand on the ground and keeping very still. She is trying to feel the vibrations when the rock hits bottom, 7 offered. Yeah, I got that, thanks, Marco said. Heather had come to some conclusion. She unslung the scythe from her back and tested the wall, being able to reach the lip of the crater with her curved blade. Stepping to measure the length of her ledge, she reached one far edge, then turned and ran. An ungainly, hoppy, lumbering run, but it was enough. She planted the scythe and soared out of the crater, pulling the long weapon with her. She landed in a crouch, a small knife in one hand, the scythe whipping round in a circle to catch anyone close by. There was no one. Marco's face felt hot. He wondered what it would be like, realizing you're out in the open with no sensation, knowing 4 people could be hunting you. He would go mad. Heather then began spinning the scythe around her, forming a sort of moving shield with the weapon. The complicated figure-8 movements whirled from right to left, overhead, and then back to the right. Does she have a plan? She always does, 13 said. Akoth still hunted warily at the north end of the battlefield, her limited time making her jump at shadows. The Kenyan woman will be feeling the effects of hypothermia now, and will run out of air shortly, 7 said. That is a pity. She showed promise, said 13. The woman started her own slow run south, her head twisting desperately for her fellow contestants. What a crappy way to go, Marco thought, after a great showing just expire before you could find your opponents. She missed Lucas's hiding place by 50 yards, and the monitor showed a close-up of him watching her go by, refusing to reveal himself. How's he handicapped? Marco said. 13 glanced at another monitor with stats. Aha! He has no weapon. He must disarm, loot a body, or fight unarmed. And that's equal to Heather's? Marco asked, outraged. Pardon me. And that's equal to Heather's? Marco asked, outraged. 7 turned one eye stalk towards him. He is not the Red Granny. Marco stopped paying attention to him. Akoth had found Heather and stood well away, judging her odd whirling movements. The blade went up and down, followed by the butt of the weapon, then back down. Her eyes followed it, and she leapt forward as the butt end was coming down. She accepted the hit to the shoulder and lunged. Heather's response was instantaneous. She flipped backwards, dropping the scythe, gloved hands reaching up to her helmet. Her fingers, nimble in their alien-wear gloves, snapped the buckles that attached her helmet to her suit. Marco gasped as her helmet flew off, and she revealed her naked head in the total vacuum. 10 seconds, said 7 impassively as he watched. It took 3 seconds for Heather to focus on Akoth, move forward, and duck the Kenyan's first deadly swipe. 2 more seconds passed as Heather's hands made quick work of the buckles on Akoth's helmet as the older woman kneed her in the sternum. Right after 7 warned 5 seconds, Heather fitted the helmet over her own head, leaping away from Akoth and apparently gasping for breath. Margot's voice nearly gave out from his cheers, echoed in silence outside as the crowd stood as one, flashing their lights for much longer than it took the younger woman to expire, unconscious, on the lunar surface. 13 sipped at a blue liquid. Humans can survive in a vacuum for about 10 seconds before they experience heart failure. It was a bold move. Heather's heart isn't as strong as a younger woman's, but she had a plan worked out for total vacuum, while the Kenyan was taken by surprise. She truly is amazing, Margot said. That was a new move. I think she may be due a raise. 13 said. If she survives, there's one more to go, 7 reminded them. Margot scowled. She's not even handicapped anymore. What's the worry? There is always worry. She's also very likely suffering the effects of vacuum exposure. Our physicians will be able to treat her, but for the moment, she's at less than optimal performance. The Red Granny had taken a moment to rest from her exertions after discovering there were no enemies immediately nearby. She was about 75 yards south of where Lucas crouched. She stood and, leaving her scythe behind, jumped around the perimeter of the battlefield. She soon discovered the bodies of the two defeated competitors and, slowing, looked around her. Cautiously, she started her search again. She has realized that the final competitor is likely hiding, 7 said. It's a game now. Don't people find this boring? Marco asked. She could be out there for hours and the crowd can't even help. 7 shook his head. They have 1 hour of air in their tanks. This keeps the battles constrained to a time limit, and Heather has lost a good amount of her air in her helmet exchange. It will be over soon. I estimate Marco shrugged. He realized his apprehension was partly selfish, wondering what he would do if he lost his only human ally among the aliens. I estimate 5 minutes left until she needs oxygen and medical attention, 7 said. If she simply falls over and dies, Lucas wins. But it's a passionless win. One doesn't become a champion by hiding. He needs a kill if he's going to have the crowd behind him. Lucas apparently knew this. He shifted in his shadows as Heather lumbered closer. The crowd began to show their agitation, flashing their lights as she neared his hiding place. The camera focused in on Lucas's hands, flexing, opening, closing. Marco wanted to yell at her again to warn her, and his impotence enraged him. This is sick. Who gets off on this? Most of your planet. The words came from one of the aliens, but Marco couldn't tell who'd said it. The room fell silent as movement exploded on the battlefield. Heather had turned with a smooth movement and thrown her small knife. In the low gravity, it seemed to float instead of fly, end over end. Lucas's hiding place compromised, he stepped forward and focused on the projectile, easily batting it out of the way. This change of focus turned out to be his undoing. Heather took advantage of his distraction and launched herself at him, kicking off a hill and coming down at an angle, striking him in the chest. They both went down and he struggled under her, but then went slack. The camera focused in on Heather's boots, previously unnoticed, which had small spikes embedded in the toes. The spike of her right foot had torn through his suit and gone into his abdomen. She stepped back from him and waited, ready, her unarmed hands up and ready to defend. But Lucas didn't move. The camera focused in on his face, panting and fogging up his helmet, and unbelievably tears streaming down that face to catch in his blonde hair. The spike wasn't that big, it can't have hurt that much, Marco said. Isn't he a warrior? The alien ignored him. The man wept on his back, unmoving, and then Heather found the knife he had batted away. She went back to Lucas, sobbing and fetal now, and coaxed him with surprising tenderness to lie back. He didn't resist her motherly ministrations, and when he was back, she sliced open his suit, exposing his neck and cutting his throat. The crowd lit up again in their frantic admiration of the Red Granny, and the old woman waved and smiled, and then collapsed onto the lunar surface.
Keep going.
I feel we should.
Okay. It my first choice for a place to stop, but I thought the chat would kill you.
I think let's do a little bit more. To the spot that you marked.
I'm realizing that the spot that I marked is... Oh, no, wait, I'm going the wrong way. Hang on a second. Let me see how far in you are. Just keep reading. I'll let you know when it's
okay. Just keep going.
Just keep going.
Just keep going.
The chat's going to kill you.
I think that went better than expected, 7 said, but looked at 13 for confirmation. She nodded slowly. Marco's mouth hung open. What? What? What are you talking about? What about Heather? Is no one going to go get her? Hell, I'll get her. Where's the door? 7 glanced at him. You would die before you would reach her. Paramedics always go get the winner and administer to her. It's their job. As he spoke, Marco caught the odour of a large holiday meal, comforting in its ham and sheer predictability. Even as 7 said this, 2 willowy, suited Legion drove a small rover towards Heather, loaded her on the back, and then headed towards an airlock. Other rovers came out of doors to clean up the bodies on the field, and the audience began filing out of the stands. Marco had changed his mind about drinking. Where can a human go for a drink around here? He asked the Legion as they rose to their tentacles. We recommend our artists do not drink during their patronage, 7 said, and Marco got the distinct feeling that the recommendation was really a hard and fast rule. An image of a tall, unmovable statue flashed in his mind. You don't want to meet anyone from the Alcoholics Guild, 13 said. They do not look highly on our patronage. They do not treat our artists with respect. The Legion eating establishments are quite good. I'll have 7 escort you to 222. Marco tried not to show his dismay. 222, numeral 2, the word 2, then numeral 2 again. A 2 from House Magenta has opened a bar for humans. It is where the Red Granny supporters usually go. You will enjoy it. With one more glance at the monitors where an excited announcer was talking over replays of the bloodshed, Marco followed 7 out of the skybox and onto a walkway. Again, Marco wished he'd learned more about Legion patronage before heading to Mollywood. He hadn't realised his connection with the Red Granny would make him a celebrity by association. Once he and 7 entered 222, they were greeted with cheers and backslaps, and 2 drinks were put into Marco's hands. They took a seat by the bar where a Legion bartender, a male 9 of House Magenta, informed them that their drinks had been paid for by several cheering fans, all wishing to celebrate Heather's continued dominance of the field. Although the human revellers did shout at Marco and buy him drinks, the presence of 7 seemed to cause them to keep a respectful distance. Marco kept getting a visual of that sleek panther, quiet and calm, and ready to attack if needed. Is Heather going to be okay? Marco persisted as 7 ordered a clear, bubbly drink for himself. Our physicians are very advanced compared to yours, 7 replied. She has been patched up from much more serious injuries than this. We had to regrow a leg once. Marco choked on his fruity drink. Regrow a leg? She had a leg cut off? Only below the knee. It was a simple procedure. Marco shook his head. He was beginning to fully understand the sheer force of the Red Granny and the power she had over her fans. So when will she fight again? Not for weeks. The most dangerous game has 15 first rounds, and then the winning 15 players will fight in groups of 3. The final 5 will then face off in the championship game. Marco shuddered, and people love these things. 7 stretched out a tentacle to indicate the boisterous bar. You have eyes? Tell me. Marco eyed the drinks in front of him. So, what am I drinking here? 7 pointing a tentacle at 1, a mug of steaming orange-brown liquid. That's a fisheye. Taste of oranges and spice contains the story A Study in Scarlet by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. The tentacle went to the highball glass with 3 lumps of ice. That would be a Snelling's 3, a powerful blend of sculpture and ice water. Marco sipped at the fisheye, and unexpectedly, the plot of the Sherlock Holmes classic seeped into his brain. I can see why the educational system of Earth doesn't want you around. 7 waved a tentacle. Oh, we are no threat. The effects wear off as soon as you're done with the drink. You remember the experience, but not the details, unless you're already familiar with the art. The experience was something Marco hadn't felt before, so he savoured it. Seven was content to sit beside him, and Marco decided the alien had one thing going for him. Although he wasn't friendly, he wasn't chatty either. Another drink was set before him, a glass of red fruit juice. He asked the bartender from where it had come, and the Legion pointed a tentacle. Marco looked to where the bartender pointed. The woman was perhaps 30, with black short hair and bright blue eyes. She waved shyly at him. Marco's stomach clenched and he pushed the drink away, untasted. I think I've had enough. Thanks for the drinks, he said, and stood. Seven rose smoothly and wrapped 2 tentacles around Marco's arm. He tried not to flinch away, but the touch brought with it a sense of dry, warm kitten paws, with tufts of fur tickling him. Should we go home? Seven asked. Home, Marco said, thinking of his flat on Earth. Yes, I'd like to go home. How about now?
Yeah, don't push that button.
Okay. Am I back?
Okay. Yeah. Oops.
This is why there's a special button I'm not allowed to push.
Don't push that button. I think you'll have to start the section over. You're almost done.
It couldn't have been Penelope. She'd had short hair to avoid the horror of shedding one of her long black strands into a pastry. Penelope wore light tops no matter the weather, always being warm, but this woman wore a turtleneck from Earth. No, it hadn't been her. Marco woke up from a dream where he'd been making love to the girl in the bar, undressing her and finding Penelope hiding under the turtleneck, telling him to be quiet and come inside where it was safe. His mouth tasted like he had licked a movie theatre floor. He moved a hand over the bed in a furtive attempt to see if he really did have her in his bed, but he was alone. Alone, that is, until the voice spoke. I hear you were worried about me, she said, her voice amused. No! Oh, Heather! Is that you? Certainly is, she said. I can turn on a light if you'd like. Without his affirmation, a reading lamp next to a chair flicked on, revealing Heather, again in a simple outfit of slacks and a blouse. Oh, God, what time is it? Marco asked, trying to clear his head.
The chat wants to see the button. I'm going to show them the button.
5 in the morning, GMT, she said. 335 lunar time. 300. Oh, God. So is this how you haze the new guy? You put me to bed at 2 and wake me at 5. She sighed and crossed her legs primly. I just got released from the hospital. I didn't feel the need for sleep, and 13 told me that you were very concerned. I figured I'd let you know that I was all right. Marco rubbed his face. Sure. That's lovely. Thank you. Do you have any water? Coffee, maybe? Wrapped in his sheets, he couldn't get the mild feeling of arousal off his mind, and he carefully arranged them to hide this fact as Heather approached. She passed him a glass filled with a slightly orange liquid. I have something better. This is what the Alcoholics Guild sells. They're not allowed to sell it on Earth. Are you allowed to have it here? He asked. She smiled at him. He downed it and relaxed, waking up in some ways, calming down in others. He sighed and settled himself against the headboard. That's impressive, thanks. But as the words Alcoholics Guild sank in, he remembered the events of the evening. Oh, wait, shit, are you okay? She smiled. I'm fine, dear. That's what I came to tell you. Good. He studied her thin arms, tiny body, short legs, all looking as if they would break if she fell the wrong way. So, what did you want to talk to me about? Well, I wanted to see how you were holding up. They rather threw you deep into the lake of House Blue patronage. But that's just it. He closed his eyes. Heather, what am I doing here? I'm not a gladiator warrior like you, and if House Blue doesn't have any other artists or writers in their house, this is starting to sound a lot like a mistake. I'm sure I could not tell you why you are here. It's true, you don't seem to have the necessary background for the games, she said, mildly smiling at the understatement. Since no one else filled you in, House Blue is a diplomatic house. Perhaps not involved with the ruling houses, but definitely on the front line of human relations. Then why do they just have 2 humans in their house? She shrugged and did not answer. I do know what they have planned for you tomorrow, or, she checked her watch, later today, around 338. Do you know anything about how they manage to put taste into paintings, or music into pie? He shook his head. I thought nobody did. She waved her hands, dismissing him. Oh, humans can't produce it, but we know the concept behind it. At least some of us have been able to piece it together. All humans under Legion patronage go through this. First, you have electrodes placed on your head, and then they put you in a sensory deprivation chamber, immersing you into a special liquid to deny you of all senses. They will rob you of everything. They even manage to remove the taste from your mouth. I would pay money for them to do that right now, Marco said, grimacing. She smiled slightly and refilled his glass. Then they pump hormones into the liquid, designed to stimulate your brain into thinking it's seeing, feeling, smelling. You know, all the senses. Then they record. Later, they take what they record and put it into their art. Marco shifted in bed. So they're recording my thoughts. She shook her head. Not exactly. They want to record your response to things. Here's what we've learned. The Legion do not feel the way we do. They have emotions, love, fear, hatred, but they don't attach them to senses. What does that mean? I mean, I'm not in love with my nose either. If you smell your favorite dish from childhood, how do you feel? If you hear a song that you listen to with an old lover, how do you feel? If I tell you that your favorite movie is terrible, will you respect my opinion, or will your attachment to the movie make you angry with me? Our emotions tie directly to our senses. What we see and smell and hear and taste and feel, as well as the stories we get out of those senses, like a movie, or a novel, or art. It's hard to tell how they experience things. Clearly they show preferences, but things like nostalgia just don't play into their preferences. Passion, said Marco. They don't have passion. Heather snapped her fingers. Good boy. They have no passion. They find it fascinating that humans will judge one another on a deep level just by learning that they listen to a certain kind of music or eat a certain kind of food. Bread to them is bread. To me, it's love, as my mother would cook crushed bread for us. But I no longer eat olives, as that's what I was eating the night the Chinese invasion took Malacca, and we had to fight our way out. The Legion feel none of this. I thought they just put odd art pairings together, Marco said. When did they stop putting straight emotions into things? Isn't that dangerous? It's experimental technology they're just now working on, Heather said, but they've been recording every human they patronize. If they don't feel this, then why are they going through so much trouble putting passion into art? They want to understand what drives us. They are fascinated by humans and our ability to create and destroy. Marco drank more of the orange drink.